All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Good evening, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios of the X Zone Broadcast Network in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And we're coming to you on the X Zone Broadcast Network, the Mutual Broadcast Network, and Talkstar Radio Network. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. Tonight we're going to be talking in this first hour to a gentleman we had the pleasure of having on the show last year, and his name is Andrew RADZIEWICZ. And we're going to be talking to Andrew, who is a psychic medium. We're also going to be talking to him about UFOs and contacts and CE-5s. And Andrew is a contactee. He presently lives in Australia, but before he lived in New York City, where he was a member of the New York City Fire Department. And first of all, welcome back to the X Zone.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Tell me, do you miss New York?
Oh, yeah, I totally. But, it's nice. We're going to go back there for around Christmas time. So I'm stoked to go home for a month.
That's great to hear. Tell us about your psychic experience and the work that, what happened within the New York Fire Department.
Sure. So I joined the New York City Fire Department in April of 2006, and I'm a third-generation firefighter. So my dad got on in 1981, and my uncle got on in 1956. So many generations of firefighting. However, when I got on, I had heard of a person named Dr. Stephen Greer.
Right.
And in 2011, I went out to the desert in California to meet him and to learn the CE-5 protocols. I just found it very interesting that, is it possible we could proactively make contact with UFOs? And I did that in 2011. And when I met him, literally from the first moment we went out that night, we made contact. We were out in the desert. I was setting up, doing our circle, doing our thing. From that first night, I was sitting in the circle. I didn't see anything that night. I didn't actually see something. But when I went back to my hotel room that night, I had an experience there with an orb coming in the room, a green orb that stayed with me for several hours until the sun came up. And I was with somebody at the time. I had a partner with me who was a New York police officer. We both saw this object for several hours. And then literally that morning we went back to our group, told the CE-5 group what had happened. And from that day on in October of 2011 till now, I have had contact, I would say, at will. So anytime I proactively go out and try to make contact, I will have peaceful contact. I've never had anything negative happen in my CE-5 experiences. And then I've also had some pretty powerful paranormal experiences. But I like to start with what I experienced with Dr. Greer first, because if I didn't have that experience with him, if I didn't learn CE-5, if I didn't start meditating on a daily basis, then all of the other events after 2011 that had happened in my life, I don't know if I would have been aware of them. I don't know if I would have been able to have the understanding of what was actually happening. And I'll get into a very particular firefighting experience if you'd like. That was really meaningful. So after meeting Dr. Greer, I go back to New York. And at this time in 2011, October 2011, when I met Dr. Greer, When I went back, nobody knew in the firehouse that I was making contact. I wasn't, reading any UFO books at work. If anything, I was trying to hide the fact in October of 2011, because at that point, I got on the fire department in 2006. So 5, 6 years into the job, I didn't want anyone knowing anything like that. I just figured, oh, it's just something I'll do on the side, something private, no one will know. And like I said at the time, I was with a police officer and her as well to, professionally relay that to people. People might think you're crazy or loopy, and the times we're living in now, Rob, it's totally different. You didn't talk about this stuff at
Sure.
work. I worked with about, 15 guys, all men, and this is not something that you bring up at the kitchen table. However, I found a group in Albany, right near Albany, New York, that would meet monthly, and we would sit and we would do the same CE-5 protocols. So when people will love to say to me, oh, you went and met Dr. Greer, you spent thousands of dollars, and it's such a ripoff. I will say, you don't have to do that. There are local CE-5 groups in the neighborhood you live in. You can go online and find them, and you can meet with them probably for free. However, I wanted to go to the source.
Right.
Because being a firefighter, when I walk in the firehouse, I'm not going to go up to somebody that has 6 months or a year experience and say, hey, man, tell me everything you know. Not that I can't learn anything from them, but if I want to know how to live and survive, I'm going to grab a guy that has 20, 30 years and go, hey, can you teach me everything you know, because you've made it? You know what I mean? You're still standing. So I took what I learned in the firehouse and I applied that with making contact. I said, I want to be around highly experienced people because I want to know the ups and downs, the ins and outs. And at the time in 2011, Dr. Greer was doing that stuff for like 20 years already.
Yes,
So
that's right. But Andrew, you've been saying
Yep.
CE5. I know what you mean. You know what you
Sure.
mean. But can you explain what a CE5 is to our audience who may not be as in depth and
Oh, yeah.
in ufology as both you and I are?
Yeah, so CE5 stands for Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. So there are many different ways that people have had contact with UFOs or extraterrestrials. CE5 is Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. So that's called human initiated contact. So that's basically where humans, or whether it's an individual or a group of humans, you'll sit, you'll meditate, and you'll proactively try to make contact. Whereas the other types of UFO contact might be, oh, I just happen to be sitting outside and I saw a UFO, or someone claims that they got abducted by aliens or a spacecraft. This is going out with the intention of actually making contact with UFOs. Now, that might sound crazy to someone that's listening that's never heard this. So when I first did this, I was skeptical. And I just said, let me just see. I think it might be possible, but I don't know. I actually have to go and try and do this. And you want to do it safely. And that's why I always recommend to be around well-experienced people doing CE-5. If people Google that, if they look up CE-5, they can find out a lot of information about that. But Dr. Greer actually coined that term, Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, human-initiated contact.
Now, if the human is doing the initiation by meditation, is it possible that the UFO is not extraterrestrial but interdimensional?
Yes. So my understanding is that there are two types. This is, once again, this is why I asked Dr. Greer, what's going on? What are we communicating with? And he said, there are extraterrestrials that come from other planets, other realities, if you want to say, people like to say other timelines, things like that. There are actual extraterrestrials coming from distant places, and ones that I believe that are here with us. And then, this is where it gets a little tricky. There are interdimensional beings that people have written about, talked about, people have read about in religious texts, in Bibles. Sometimes they refer to them as demons or angels or different types of interdimensional beings. But they also have the ability to mask or look like extraterrestrials. That's where this thing can get tricky. So that's where this, having a real sound mind and using discernment and being really careful about who you have around you and what your intention is. Once again, if you're putting out a peaceful intention, if you're sending out a positive intention, I've had peaceful experiences in return. And same thing with the group I've been with, for over the past decade. We've never had a bad experience there because we've always set out a positive intention. So when people say that they've communicated with interdimensional beings, or they've had, especially if it's a negative experience, I don't want any part of that. I don't want anything negative. But yes, I believe that there are people out there that are communicating with interdimensional beings, but there is a difference between that and extraterrestrial.
Why do they want to communicate with us? What is their intention? Why do they want to come to Earth?
So I would say that they're very concerned. My understanding from having family, friends, people that I know that have worked in military and intelligence for many, many decades, is that basically after we lit off the first atomic bomb, after we even started testing this stuff, that's when a lot of UFOs came and they started to become very concerned about our well-being, and lighting off a bomb or sending out something with a negative intention in that respect, like a nuclear weapon into the cosmos, can have an effect through the different dimensions, like you said, interdimensionals, or
Right.
even with different planets. So they basically responded and said, whoa, what are you doing? And at that point, humans like myself, Dr. Greer, and other people felt that it was essential for people on planet Earth to become ambassadors, to have a communication system that, yes, there are people that have some negative intent or maybe are lighting off nukes, but then there's also peaceful humans. So I feel the ETs, they're just concerned. They're looking at us like a distant cousin or a child, and they want us to learn on our own. However, if we ask or we seek or we send out that intention, they will respond. And the proof is in the pudding with people doing CE-5.
Right. Let me ask you this question. I've got about a minute before I have to go to our first break. In your opinion, if there was the chance of a nuclear exchange between the good guys versus the bad guys, the button is pushed. Do you think that the ETs would intervene in order to save us and save our planets?
Absolutely. And I think that if you're dealing with a species that's, 500 years more advanced or even 50 more years advanced, they have evolved past the point of harming each other. So if they saw us do that or about to do that, I feel that they would intervene because, yes, it would affect all of the cosmos.
Something like the ripple effect. When you toss a pebble into a pond, you get the ripples. And if you toss a second pebble in the pond, the ripples interact with each other. And before you know it, you've got a pond full of ripples. And I guess the same thing would happen to our solar system, our galaxy, our universe. All right.
I agree.
All right. Please stand by, Andrew. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Andrew about his first UFO experience, as well as we're going to get into some of his paranormal experiences. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, from the studios of the X Zone Broadcast Network, a division of Relmar McConnell Media Company, www.rel-mar.com. We come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight on the X Zone Broadcast Network, as well as our affiliates in Canada and the United States, including your hometown Classic 1220 CFAJ in St. Catharines and WVEX in Midland, Michigan. I'll be back on the other side of this short break with my very special guest as we continue talking about UFOs, CE-5s, and encounters of a friendly kind.
Just close my eyes again. Climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train. Trying to take away my worries of today and leave tomorrow behind.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center of the X Zone Broadcast Network in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And if you'd like to see all the great shows that we have available for our international listening audience, go to www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is Andrew RADZIEWICZ, and in 1999, Andrew was serving in the United States Coast Guard and had a life-changing UFO encounter with 20 other witnesses. This Nimitz-style encounter would eventually lead to Andrew to meeting Dr. Stephen Greer and learn the CE-5 method in 2011. After meeting Dr. Greer, Andrew started to train with psychic medium Robert Hansen in Long Island, New York, after he was told by Mr. Hansen that he had the gift of being psychic medium. Since meeting with Dr. Stephen Greer, he has had dozens of 100% peaceful interactions with UFOs and ETs. Andrew has a unique gift and combines his psychic abilities and UFO contact all at the same time. He's on a quest to show the connection between UFOs and the afterlife. In 2022, Andrew had his UFO videos professionally analyzed by MUFON Australia in a 6-part documentary series on the Discovery Channel called Close Encounters Down Under, and that's episode number 4. First of all, I'd like to apologize, Andrew, in calling Dr. Stephen Greer Dr. Roger Lear. So, first of all, you were talking about October 2011. Were you on duty the fateful day of September 11, 2011?
No, so I got on the fire department in April of 2006. I was not on the fire department yet. However, my father was working. He was active. He was working on 9/11 on that day and did survive.
Well, thank your father for his service from everyone here.
Will do.
All right, so let's get back to the UFOs. First of all, I'd like to talk to you about the UFO experience you had in the United States Coast Guard.
Yes, so this is amazing. So, at the time, I'm about 19 years old in 1999. I'm a kid or a young man, however you want to consider it. So I was not doing CE-5, nothing like that. And I was the lone night watchman on the Coast Guard Cutter Durable out of St. Petersburg, Florida. And every 4 hours you would rotate, you'd go and people would have to drive the boat, and you'd go on top of the boat and you'd scan the whole perimeter sky, the ocean, to see if anything was out there. So on a late night after midnight, I just got done driving the boat. I went up topside to the very top of the boat, and I'm scanning with night vision goggles, with regular goggles, and all of a sudden I see a round silver object. And then I see another one slightly behind it. And I'm thinking at the time, it's just a satellite, or it's something that, a plane, or I don't know, something in the sky that could be identified. So I call down to the officer on duty and just let him know, because you have to report everything. You don't assume anything. So I just report it down, not thinking anything else. And I'm just keeping my eyes on it. And next thing I know, the officer comes up. He grabs a pair of binoculars. He starts looking, and he says to me, he says, "Andrew, we had nothing on the radar," which is impossible from what I know. Everything and anything at least should be detected on a radar system. So we're all looking, and next thing I know, there's 5, 6 people, 10 people, everyone's coming up, everyone's talking, looking at these two objects, and one is just going slightly in front of the other one. They're moving at the same pace, and it's just slightly staggered. And next thing I know, the captain of the boat is up there. So if you're waking up the captain of a Coast Guard boat up, if you're waking him up after midnight, there better be a very good reason. So he's up there, he's looking, we're all looking, and all of a sudden, about 10, 15 minutes into it, I don't know exactly the time, because I didn't want to look at my watch, because I didn't want to lose sight of these objects. So I don't know the exact time, but the two objects merged together, and then they just vanished. They didn't take off. There was no sound. There was no trace, no trail. They were just gone. And I'll never forget that feeling.
Now, whereabouts was the location of your ship at the time of the sighting?
So we were in the Gulf of Mexico. Our patrol area was the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and we were down in the Gulf of Mexico area. Yeah.
Is it possible that this was a military object, or that it had something to do with NASA?
So I asked, and I remember when this happened, talking with people, and they said, well, anything that crosses the front or back of our boat, we have the right to engage, meaning in 1999, we had the right to shoot it down if it didn't identify itself. So when this was happening, the captain said the gunner's mate could have shot this down. He said, so usually for a military exercise or NASA or something or anything out there, they let us know because they don't want to put us in any sort of harm. Once
Right.
again,
Yeah.
this is a very dangerous time. We were going to Cuba and to Guantanamo Bay and all those areas. So usually, unless it was some sort of secret, top secret clearance that nobody knew, I can't say that. But what happened after and the events that happened later in my life, no, I don't believe that it was anything military.
I was just going to ask you about stealth technology because that's about the time when they were testing stealth technology.
Sure, sure. So from what I saw from these objects, they were silver. So they weren't black. Well,
Yeah.
from just what I saw, they were round.
Right.
They were silver. I could see it with the naked eye, and I could see it with night vision. So unless, like I said, unless there was something there that could vanish,
Yeah.
it didn't take off. It just vanished. So I don't know what that could be.
Was there any other report made to the military, the Navy, the Air Force, about
Yeah,
this?
so
Yeah.
I remember asking around. We were the only vessel in that area. We called the Navy. The Navy, sometimes they have submarines or, something that's below the sea. Nothing else was reported, but I didn't see anything else around either
Wow.
to say, hey, can we check in with them? So no, nothing else was reported. But usually everything will detect on radar. There was nothing on the radar. That's very, very odd.
So, how did this influence your life path?
Yeah, so being 19, after that, in 2001, I saw Dr. Greer at the National Press Club doing a presentation. This is only 2 years later, and I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. There's people that actually have seen this as well, or military guys. And then in 2011, I finally went to go see him because in between then, I had nowhere to go. I had no one to talk to. I didn't want anyone to know this because if you start talking about this stuff, then you're a weirdo. Then good luck getting a job, and you were, you would made fun of, and you don't want to get blacklisted from anything. So until 2011, I just kept it quiet. However, it sparked something in me, and when the timing was right and I had the money and means to travel, I said, I got to figure this out now.
What was it like the first time that you were with Dr. Greer? You did the meditation in the desert. You come back to nothing happens in the desert. You come to your hotel room, and this green orb spends hours with you in your hotel room. Was there any kind of communication between you and the orb?
Oh, 1,000%. Now, the ego in my mind was trying to tell me this isn't possible. Nothing is going on. You're imagining this. Like there was a voice telling me, no, no, this is nonsense. However, I'm glad that I stuck with it and I had a witness with me. Because if I was alone, I might have just thought, oh, come on, that's nothing. It's a reflection of something.
Right.
But we both sat, and I felt like they, vice versa. I was aware of them, and they, or the object, was aware of us, and we were just making each other feel comfortable with each other. And then after, the thing that literally right during the day and then the night after, the amount and the volume of contact that we had, for me, was like the seed was planted to say, okay, yes, now that we know vice versa, we're okay with each other. Now we'll come at will. That's the message I was getting, was that we're here.
Yeah.
We'll come when you ask, but we're not just going to impose ourselves upon you.
And the fact that both you and the person that you were there with, a New York police officer, you're two credible witnesses.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad I did this with other people in the group. Some of the people were medical doctors, scientists, engineers, and your next door housewife. It doesn't matter. Anyone and everyone's out there. But I was with well-seasoned people to go, hey, what's going on? What does this mean? Whereas if I was trying to figure this out alone online, oh my God, everyone wants to make fun of you and bash you. I know why a lot of people don't want to go near this.
Between the time you started with Dr. Greer until present time, can you take a guesstimate at how many sightings or how many CE-5 contacts you've had?
Oh my God. So, I mean, you're talking about 14, 15
Yeah.
years. I mean, it's got to be thousands.
Wow.
Most of them, and I always say this, most of them I don't have any footage of because I only started recording in like 2017. Prior to that, I'm like, I don't want to film this. I don't want to be online arguing with people, whether that's an orb or a blob. And that's what you do with now with people, you know? So, but yeah, I didn't want to even get involved with that. And when you film, you can lose some of the interaction and the download because now you're worried about filming and did it film. Whereas I don't even want the camera around. I just want to sit there and get a download and enjoy the experience.
Why do you think that these visitors will not make themselves known once and for all? Like, just land on the front lawn of the White House or Parliament Hill here in Canada or Buckingham Palace in the United States, Red Square. Why the bit and pieces of contact?
I think that if they did that, people would come outside, look, and go, oh, okay, cool, but I got to go to work tomorrow morning. I got to get back to bed. I do not think most people would care. I think they'd go right back inside to watching Netflix like nothing happened.
Right.
Because they're giving us these slow drips, and some of these things are incredible. And most people look, but they're like, whatever, and they just go back to what they're doing. I don't think humans realize how important this is until you see one or you lose someone and you have some sort of experience of it. Then the narrative changes for people.
Andrew, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. But first of all, where can people find more about you online? Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's very easy. Just go to thepsychicfirefighter.com.
Thepsychicfirefighter.com. And your book is available, I would imagine, on Amazon?
My book has not been released yet, but my book, Angels in the Firehouse, it will be released. It's not yet, but it is in the works.
I must be psychic. Andrew, please stand by. You and I will be back shortly. Exonation. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Here we have a former member of the U.S. Coast Guard who was a former member of the New York Fire Department who was with a member of the New York Police Department after having learned a CE-5 technique by Dr. Stephen Greer, who actually spent time with a green orb in their hotel room. Much more to come from our guest as we return on the other side of this break. I'm Rob McConnell on the X Zone Broadcast Network system. So whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. If you'd like to send me an email, if there's a special guest you'd like to have on the show, if you have special comments that you'd like to make about any of the shows that you hear. Yeah, that's a funny way of putting it. Send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Joining me from Australia this hour is Andrew RADZIEWICZ, and we're talking to him about his experiences. Now, we're talking about somebody here who is credible, Exonation. We're not talking about a couple of guys who are sitting in the back of a pickup truck having a bit of Jack Daniels and beer. We're talking about a former member of the United States Coast Guard, number one. A member of the New York Fire Department, number two. the encounter that he had after receiving CE-5, how to do a CE-5 by Dr. Stephen Greer was also witnessed by a New York City police officer. Now, also in attendance of this session with Dr. Stephen Greer were doctors and other members of the medical profession and business profession. So how can we, whether we're believers or non-believers, how can we say that, come on, you're making all this up? If there are so many witnesses who are willing to put their name, their reputations up front to say, hey, listen, I'm not the guy that sits in the back of the truck drinking Jack Daniels and beer. I am a professional witness. We have to keep our ears open. We have to keep the line of possibilities open, because as we go forward in time, we learn more. For example, people who have had near-death experiences years ago couldn't talk about it, but they do now. People who have had out-of-body experiences couldn't or wouldn't talk about it years ago, but they do now. People who investigate all aspects of the paranormal, years ago they didn't, but now they do. We're opening up, and as we open up more and more and more, and we exchange information and the possibilities, let's bring quantum physics and quantum mechanics into the realm. The door to the paranormal and to these UFO encounters, in my opinion, are going to open up wide. And I'm sure that the information that we're going to be exchanging with the other side is going to blow us away. And I believe that you've had some very amazing downloads from the other side, Andrew.
Yeah, so in the midst of all this as well, so I met Dr. Greer in October 2011. So just before then, my grandmother had passed away. And when I was a kid growing up, I used to watch that show on TV, Unsolved Mysteries, with my grandmother.
Robert Stack.
The best. So in 1993, I was 13, and they had a ghost, paranormal spirit type episode on. I looked at my grandmother and I said, Gram, when you pass one day, like they show on TV and they make contact, can you come back and give me a sign? And she looked at me dead in the eyes and goes, I promise I will. So 18 years later, around 2010, my grandmother passes away. And right after she passes away, me and my mom go out to eat in a restaurant. And a guy walks into this restaurant with long hair, earrings, leather jacket, comes up to me and my mom and says, did someone in your family just die that had cancer right here on their face? And this guy pointed to the exact spot on his face to where my grandmother had her skin cancer. And I go, yeah. And he goes, you or your mom, who was born on Easter Sunday? My mom was born on Easter Sunday in 1956.
My gosh.
Now, that's not something the average person would know unless you knew me really, really well, And he said a lot of other things that just made no sense that the average person wouldn't know. And he was a psychic medium by the name of Robert Hansen. He was doing a reading of the whole restaurant. I was skeptical, so I waited a year. I waited a whole year, tracked him down, got a reading, and at the end of the hour reading, he said to me, he said, Andrew, you have the gift. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm a firefighter. I'm not psychic. He goes, no. You're already getting information. You're getting downloads. I can help you interpret the messages. And I go, okay, show me. And from that moment on, I started training with him on the weekends. And he showed me how to meditate and to just see the impressions and the messages that are around. And since that moment in 2010, 2011 till now, I've been a psychic medium helping people all over the world connect and interpret messages from their loved ones on the other side. And I feel that our loved ones are in a space where the UFOs, extraterrestrials are as well. That's my personal opinion.
You mentioned that with Dr. Greer's CE-5 system, there's meditation. And then you were talking about when you were approached by this psychic, there's this meditation that goes into it as well. Is meditation the key to unsolving the mysteries of the paranormal?
So, yes. So all of it, terrestrials, the aliens, your family, your loved ones, they can only come in silence. So you can't shut off your mind. There's no way. However, if you can remain still and start to quiet down the mind. Picture the dial on a radio.
Okay.
If it's on 10 max volume and you lower it down slowly and go to 1, it's just slightly on. Think of that with your brain. So you start to turn down the volume in your brain, and when you get to that low point around 1 or maybe towards 0, that's when we can receive all of these messages from the other side and from the ETs and everything.
I understand that you have studied afterlife, and in your opinion, what happens to us when we die? What will happen when the physical Andrew or the physical Rob dies?
So I've also studied this in depth as well with some schools, some private schools in ancient Egyptian mythology and all sorts of wonderful things. And I really do believe that part of the soul remains around. It lingers around. Parts of the soul go on, they move on, but there are 7 parts of the soul based on what the Egyptians believe, and one of them just lingers around. That's the one that we can make contact with.
Where do the other 6 parts go?
So they might go on to other lifetimes. You know, there's other lives, other realities. You know, to go to different parts of the world. They just do different things. There's different components.
So that would explain the 7 parts of the soul. 1 remains. I hope I can understand this right, because I'm starting to. The 6 other parts are go on a journey that we call reincarnation. But the part that remains is the part of the soul that you, as a psychic medium, can communicate with, even though the other 6 parts of the soul have been reincarnated.
Correct. So the like picture 7, right? There's 7 people, there's 7 different parts. They all have a specific mission.
Right.
There's one that lingers around, that stays around, and then sometimes people might see a poltergeist or something happening in the house, or people get a download. They're like, oh, my grandmother's around, I'm getting a message. Yeah, that's because part of the soul stays around.
Now, the downloads that you get are the only, I would imagine you get them from the ETs as well as those who have left this dimension and gone on to, continue their journey. What are the downloads from the ETs like? Can you share anything with us?
Yeah, so they're incredible. So there's a difference, right? You're communicating with
Sure.
family or an extraterrestrial. So an extraterrestrial will give me information about things that are coming, things that can happen in the future. Sometimes geographical events or things that happen in certain locations. I have had downloads. For example, in 2011, the ETs told me that there was going to be a major earthquake in the San Andreas Basin, in that area, in that valley. It hasn't happened yet, though. It hasn't happened, but they said in the future that is coming. There's going to be a massive earthquake. We'll see. We'll see if that happens.
Well, no disrespect meant, but the scientists are saying the same thing.
Yeah, in 2011 they said this. Honestly, I rarely talk about that. If you listen to my interviews, I don't talk about that because people are like, when? I said they don't give a date. And why they don't give a date is because once you have information, once you have an exact date on anything, we have free will. So as humans, we can tweak and ruin things.
Yeah.
So that's why dates are tough.
What else have you learned? What have you learned about life in the universe?
Yes. There's this greater meaning. There's this connectedness that we are just like, they say all points in space and time are connected, right? Like you talked about throwing the pebble in the water, right? And the ripples happening. It's messages like that. And the main thing they always emphasize is if you don't want to do this and you're not comfortable or whatever happens, it's fine. We won't come around. But the reason we are around you is because you keep emphasizing that you want to know more. You want to go deeper. So we'll go as deep as you want, because the reason I do this, Rob, is because I have children, and whatever you believe in, if you're helping people, you're helping to help people grow and expand and have a better life, why should you hide that from anyone? And that's the message I want to pass on to my kids.
I agree, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, believe me, I could have stayed a firefighter and just been in the background in the shadows, but I knew it was time because I didn't do this 15 years ago. I knew right now, with disclosure coming, this was the time to come forward, lay it all out on the table, take it on the chin, do what you got to do, and spread the message that we're not alone. And the only way we're going to exist in the cosmos peacefully is if we love one another here on Earth. So we have a lot of work to do right here.
You said disclosure is coming. Did you get that from a download, or did you get that from your own feelings based on
Yeah.
what you're seeing
So
happening?
the president coming to the podium and saying disclosure is, yeah, that's not what I mean. That's never going to happen. I mean, people that have contacted ETs,
I
people that
see.
have hands-on experience coming forward saying, hey, I've interacted with this stuff. This is real.
Hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. Because I believe if the people lead, then the leaders eventually will be forced to follow us.
You said that you don't believe that the president would come to a podium and, come out with disclosure, exposure, disclosure. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
why not?
think nobody wants that on the watch just because then someone is going to ask the question about abductions. And then if
Uh,
they admit that they know about abductions or they admit the truth about abductions, that
mm.
most of them are done by humans and not done by ETs, but they're done by humans pretending to look like ETs. That's what I really think is happening. That would cause an uproar. So no president wants that on their resume.
Andrew, stand by. We have to take our final break. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Always a great pleasure talking to you. And once again, thank you for your service, both as a member of the United States Coast Guard and as well as being a firefighter in New York City. Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Andrew, please visit his website, thepsychicfirefighter.com. I'm Rob McConnell. Andrew and I return on the other side as we wrap up the first hour of tonight's show of the X Zone right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Winding your way down on Baker Street, lighting your head and I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known. Don't know where it goes, but it's home to me and I walk alone. I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams, where the city sleeps and I'm the only one and I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk up. My shadow's only one that walks beside me. My shallow heart's the only thing that's been.
And welcome back. And whether you're a believer or a skeptic, join me Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and or one of our affiliates, AM station like Classic 1220, CFAJ in St. Catharines, or like our FM, one of our FM affiliates in Midland, Michigan, WVEX. And we stream 724 365 at www.xzbn.net. Wow. Our guest this hour is Andrew RADZIEWICZ. And first of all, Andrew, thanks very much for coming on the show. Very interesting. And with all that you do, having contact, getting downloads, your paranormal work, your work as a psychic medium, your work as a person who does CE-5 contacts. When do you sleep? When do you take time for yourself?
Well, being in Australia too, I got friends all over the world now, so they're calling me or messaging me at
Yeah.
all sorts of times. But no, I sleep very good at night. I get a full night's sleep. That's very important for doing this too.
Right.
I live a pretty balanced life, exercising, no drinking, no drugs, nothing like that. So you can't mix that with this. That's just what I've experienced meeting people over
Sure.
the years. You got to be straight. And that way what you're experiencing is real. It's not in some altered state. So I just have a strict regimen, which all the jobs I've had. When I moved here to Australia, I got a job in a funeral home. I was a mortician for the first 4 years that I moved here.
Well,
So
hold on,
I've,
hold on
I've,
here, hold on here, hold on. United States Coast Guard firefighter to a mortician.
yes,
Okay.
yep, that's right. So
What?
I was, people listening, I was an undertaker, an embalmer, a funeral arranger, funeral conductor here in Melbourne, Australia. I loved it. I did that. And then when COVID came,
Oh,
I just got an influx of, I kept working, but I got an influx of people saying, I need a reading, I need a reading. And it was finally time to go in full time with all this psychic stuff. But I loved working around, being around people. I don't mind being around the dead. I could say that for sure. And all of that has helped me with my practice now of being a psychic medium. I will say, I don't know what it's like to be dead,
mhm.
but I have a pretty good idea of what it's like to be around, people and families and stuff from the
Sure.
work I've done.
Well, let's face it. The person, what you're looking at is the remains of the person, the meat suit. The soul has already
Yes.
left and gone, except for that 1/7 that you and I were talking about earlier. While you were there working as a funeral director, were you ever contacted by the person that had been deceased from the other side?
Yes. So there were times that someone would come in, I would not even look at them. So they would come in. When someone comes in, they come in a bag, a body bag,
Right.
right? So that they're not in a coffin yet. So as my coworkers were aware of what I was doing, meaning as a psychic and my abilities, when someone would come in a body bag, at times I would say, I don't want to look yet. Let me just see what I'm picking up. Do I sense anything? Just to try. Let's just see. And I would get information about how they passed, right? They would be explaining to me, oh, I had clotting in my lower left calf. And you'll see that when you open somebody up, you have to embalm them, you have to cut them open. So we would open them up and validate, oh, wow, the information they're giving me is accurate. Yeah, they would communicate to me how they passed and what their state was like, what their life was like.
Right.
And yeah, I don't need an actual physical body next to me to do that, but we tried that at times. And yeah, I got some interesting informations. I saw some paranormal things.
Mhm.
I saw people walking through walls, shadow beings, and not just me, people I worked with that were in the business 20, 30 years, regular straight-laced women that I know that I worked with, told me all sorts of incredible stories that they've seen in their career.
I would imagine you being a psychic medium would be a great comfort to those who were at your funeral home grieving the loss of their loved one.
Yeah, and I was blessed enough that the two women that trained me when I
Mhm.
was embalming people were psychic. So go figure. What are the chances of that? I didn't know that previously, but when I started to work, they had shared with me too that they had some abilities. They weren't public like I was, but oh yeah, they were in tune. So once again, it was meant to be. You go out there and you take a chance and you trust, that, life is going to take you on the journey it needs to go on and you put in some hard work, you'll meet some incredible people.
So what's next for you, my friend?
So right now, in the new year in January, I'm going to be in an incredible 3-part docu-series that's coming out. It'll be on Amazon Prime and a bunch of streamers, based on the CE-5 and contact work that I've done. That's going to be incredible. You'll be at all the film festivals and everything. And then I'm working on a few projects in America, in the States for later in the year, some CE-5 and psychic type projects.
What is your opinion of Skinwalker Ranch?
So I know Dr. Greer had mentioned that at Skinwalker Ranch, yes, there were paranormal things going on, but he said that these were classified projects that were man-made.
Ah,
So, however, I could say though, even when there's man-made things, so there's consciousness-assisted technology and then technology-assisted consciousness. Basically, you can, through your consciousness, make things happen, right? But then also with electronics, they can make things happen as well. So when you're doing one, the other can happen. So even if humans are instigating the phenomena, it can also attract the interdimensional phenomena, right? That's why all these weird and messed up things happen. However, if you're trying to contact ETs and doing CE-5 peacefully, you're not going to have the things happen that happen at Skinwalker. You're going to have peaceful contact. So yeah, they're probably having real contact and all sorts of weird interdimensional things, but you need to be extremely careful with that stuff because I know people that have lost their lives from that stuff.
Earlier this year, there was the congressional hearings in Washington on UAPs, UFOs. Did you see any of that, and what was your opinion?
Yeah, so my friend Keith Taylor was actually in the room. He was
Okay.
actually present there. And then a friend of mine, Ross Coulthard, covered that a lot too. He's an Australian news guy. You might have heard of him. And David Grush, and I know some of the whistleblowers personally too. And I think it's great that they're coming forward. What I'd like to see more of is people that have actually touched, interacted with, that can speak about the phenomena, not second and third hand
Yeah.
stories, because it's like the game of telephone, right? You start to lose what really happened. So we need more first hand people.
Why aren't they coming forward?
I think that some people, they're claiming that their lives were threatened or things like that. So, hey, if that's what's going on and you signed an NDA, good luck. I've never had that happen. I've never had to sign an NDA. I've never been personally threatened or anything like that. Nothing like that. So I'd say that's a very touchy subject, but we need a platform. This is what's going on, too. I want to reveal something with your audience.
Oh, thank you.
The members of Congress,
Mhm.
the reason why this is happening is because the actual people in Congress, not, I can't speak about all of them, but I know personally that some of them are contactees. They have actually interacted with the phenomena. Now, that's not something that they'll reveal or they
Of
may not
course not,
share, but
yeah.
I can tell you, I know for sure that there's members of Congress and people that are involved with these hearings. The reason why they're pushing this, because once again, when you personally experience this, you have to know. You have to, you can't walk away from this. You have to find out.
All right, you're doing your CE-5 meditation. You make contact. How do you know whether that contact is a positive contact or a negative contact?
Based on the information you're getting, if they're telling you about a doomsday scenario or to do something bizarre to, leave your wife or do some crazy thing or to hurt yourself or harm someone or some crazy bizarre thing, when they give you an exact date and time saying, oh, the San Andreas Fault is going to blow up on September 26, 2026, no. That's nonsense. They know, a higher consciousness would know that once you reveal a date or a time, that we have the free will to now change and tweak these things. So they're not going to say a date or a time. When it's date and times and those things, that's when it's those interdimensional bugs, I call them, that start to mess with you. And they feed off of you. Once again, they feed off of you. The ETs, they will say, we'll be here. Well, if you don't want us to be here, we won't come here. When they start to form a bond, like a trauma bond, that to me, that attachment, that I need to make contact, I have to see them. No. That's getting into that trauma bond type of interdimensional thing where they start to feed off you. You need to be real careful. How do I know the difference, though? From doing meditation and
Okay.
seeing them for what they are. And they shouldn't shapeshift. If you see something, it should be in its exact pure form.
All right, so we've talked about meditation. Now, praying is what some believe to be a form of meditation. If we look back in biblical times, Jesus and other main characters throughout the Bible would pray and speak to God or speak to others. Is it possible that this is what we were seeing in biblical times and how we're relating it in present day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely something to that. I think people praying or looking up, I interpret that as they were getting downloads.
Yeah. Tell us more about how people can contact you and how they can learn more about CE-5 work and how they themselves can become a CE-5 practitioner so that they themselves can also have contact and make this a better world.
Absolutely. So with learning CE-5, learning meditation, or even to how to do mediumship type work, that's all stuff that I teach as well, because I used to teach this to guys that were Iraqi war vets, guys I was firefighting with. I taught them how to meditate just to help quiet or, start to quiet
Right.
down the mind, and people that wanted to go further with that. If they can do it, if guys in the firehouse can do this, anyone can do this. Trust me. So if you go find me on any social media, I'm on Andrew RADZIEWICZ or the Psychic Firefighter. It's really easy to get in touch with me or whoever you decide to reach out to. I just recommend make sure they have a long, consistent bond with people in this world, that they've been doing this type of work for 10, 20 years. They haven't been around for 6 months, because you can get veered off, like I said, down a totally different path I like to stick with people that have a lot of experience.
Hey, Andrew, this hour has gone by so fast. Again, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back on in the future because we still have so much to cover. Andrew, thank you so much, and keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate everything. I thank you to your audience, too, for listening.
Okay, take care, my friend.
Take
Oh,
care.
wow. What an hour, Exo Nation. Our guest this hour has been Andrew RADZIEWICZ, and you can find out more about Andrew at www.thepsychicfirefighter.com. I'll be back on the other side of this short break as hour number 2 is coming up here in the X Zone. And we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. I'll be back on the other side of this very short break. Whatever you do, don't go away.